Hey everyone, this is Kandace and Sher with Processing Trauma Out Loud. Sher and I are doing something a little bit different today. We usually take some time, Sher, to have a conversation before we go to recording, but today we just decided to jump right in at your suggestion because we're both coming out of a beautiful time that we had with our Wow sisters last night in a Zoom meeting led by our leader and mentor, Patria. This is going to tie right into this shame series that we've been in, and also anger. Like they're so closely related. I would like to start out with how you showed up last night. So we have not talked about any of this, but I was really holding you throughout the whole Zoom meeting. I was actually noticing, kind of checking on you. I could see a lot going on. I wanted to care for you, but I also knew, no, she's safe. She has been able to use her voice. But now, after it's over, can you share a little bit more? What is that space like for you when we're talking about anger and desire and shame?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, Candace. I came into the meeting last night feeling on the edge of being dysregulated. And I know that these conversations they can be dysregulating because they stir up things that go very deep. And so I had a conversation earlier in the day with my other coach, Lori Proctor, about the intersection of shame and play, and
Mm,
how for me, play became so tied to shame because of just some of the ways that my dad would inject harm and consumption into these places of play. And so then I started weaving that together with anger, and so that had been stirring for me all day, and then to the point where I felt it so much in my body. I felt heaviness in my heart. There were actually a couple of times that I had to pause and think, okay, am I okay? Like is my physical heart okay? And I just felt like, yes, it is okay, but I have a lot of emotions and some deep, deep hurts and some places of deep suffering that were touched upon. And then coming into the meeting last night, and so we've talked about IFS in the past, internal family systems, and our younger parts, and we're going to actually be doing some more sessions on that in the near future. But as I went into the meeting last night, I was very aware of my parts were feeling a little unsure about what this was going to feel like. And so I felt like one of my main tasks last night for myself was really tending well to what's going on inside, and are my parts getting dysregulated. And I was looking at my notes right before we started, and I wrote down at the beginning of our discussion last night, hey parts, I think we're all safe. Does anybody feel like we're not safe? Because I think we're safe.
mhm.
And it's like it, but then when the meeting started, I named it, and I just said, I'm just letting you know, I'm feeling like
Mhm.
it could be hard. And yeah.
I, I just, okay. Here's what I want with what you just said. I want to say this. Hey, parts. And what was the question? Are we?
Actually a statement. We're all safe. I think we're all safe. Do any of y'all feel unsafe?
Okay. So if you're not familiar with IFS parts work, I know this might be hard to understand. And it may even feel, okay, this is pretty woo woo. Here's what I want to say. For those of us who are using this modality to heal the dysregulation of those young wounded parts. It's working, which doesn't mean that we never get dysregulated. It means that in those times that we are either shutting down into disassociation or we are amping up into like panic and fear and anxiety, we are able to notice that these parts are showing up, and all they're doing, Cher, is just raising their hand for a minute and saying, wait, like, do you see me and can I trust you?
Yeah.
And when we turn, and you've said this before, once we start practicing this, we can really bring calm to our system, honestly, in a matter of seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, usually it doesn't start that way because we initially start that process kind of sometimes not liking those parts, even hating those parts.
Yeah.
But those parts are just young, wounded places that are just checking in like, hey, are we safe? Oh, beautiful, beautiful example of the way you showed up with, I mean, you had 9 pairs of eyes on you that
Yeah.
you felt safe with.
Yeah. And in a place of shame and anger and places that have been cursed and condemned and caused struggle, right? And so to be able to have this discussion, I was thinking this morning, Candace, like I'm in my 6th decade of life, a lot of years of being in groups of where there's been teachings and trainings and Bible studies and discussions. And I don't remember having discussions about these topics. And I feel like this is like core humanity. This is, and even when we talk about parts, it's actually biological, neurological function. Our brain had to fragment in order for us to survive. And then we get stuck in some of the young places developmentally that we just can't get out of until we come back and really address it. And so but to have these conversations now, and you and I, we've been I decided that I think, you know how sometimes people choose a word for the year. I thought about it at the beginning of the year. I wasn't really sure what word it should be, but I've decided, like it or not, it has become the word has become desire, because it's like it's what our focus has been on, and the ways that our desire, which is again so fully human, we were created with this capacity to desire and to have strong senses of things that we want and things that bring pleasure to our body and our soul and our spirit and relationally. And then we encountered so many situations where our desire was maybe condemned or judged, or maybe we were wounded because we went after something and found out, like, whoa, that's a place that brings pain. I don't ever want to go back there again.
Mhm.
Or or where our desire leads us into feelings of anger because maybe there's disappointment or frustration or abuse, or where somebody actually sees our desire and intentionally
Mhm.
causes harm to come to us because of that. And I'm talking about as children, and often very young children. And
Well, and on, as babies.
yeah.
Sure.
Oh,
So a baby that, man, I used to get fired up about this, and I still can, the idea that you can spoil a baby.
oh,
So here's actually the exact opposite happens. If you're not tending to your child's desires, cries, needs, and you're naming the baby as spoiled, right? It actually creates more demand in the baby until there's a shutdown. And that shutdown in the baby is, I think, one of the saddest things that can happen early on. And so, but when a baby what builds resilience and hope and trust and belief that the world is good and you're safe is that those primal needs, those early years of development in the baby stage, the toddler stage, there becomes a sense of this is what helps a child develop more patience, more ability to wait, more ability to not demand. Like it really is the exact opposite of what I'm going to say our generation was told about that you can spoil a baby. So that's one thing I want to say, but I want to swing back around to something you named about being in this group. And you've been in lots and lots of groups over the decades. We talked about last night how in our growing up years, 20s, 30s, 40s, and raising our children, and even before that, if we were in environments where the message was, don't do this, you can't do that, this is bad, you are bad if you even desire it. Like this oppressive place that possibly I want to believe had good intentions. But what it did was it didn't model or teach what do we do with these normal human and even good desires and emotions. Like no one was really shown the way, if you will, because I mean, I'm just going to say this because of fear.
Yep.
Like if we don't make you fear or provoke fear in you, you're going to go off the deep end. So here's what I want to say. The fear that was instilled in me did not prevent me going off the deep end because the fear doesn't address what do I do with all these thoughts and feelings and emotions and sensations. And I think everybody agreed, right? Weren't we pretty much all in agreement that that was the message a lot of us received?
Yeah. And I think, yes, and I think, the way we were created, I've been thinking about it this morning as a river. Like within us is this river of desire. And it's and the desire, like it's God-given. It's like who we are as humans. Like every human has a great capacity for desire. But then there are these other rivers that come in, and there are confluences of where desire meets shame, or where desire meets fear, or where desire meets um,
Anger.
anger. And in each of these places where there's a confluence, there's a swirl, right? When two rivers come together, there's going to be a swirl. A lot of times there might be rapids. It's a place almost of danger in a way. And how do we navigate through these spaces when our desire is attempted to be blocked by anger, shame, fear, and whether that's being
Judgment.
judgment, being blocked by someone or a situation that is intending us good or intending us harm, but either way, it's attempting to block the river.
Mm.
And when the river gets blocked, and so our desire is not have the freedom to flow, it's like this is a place, I think, of such confusion for us as humans. Like if we had freedom for our desire to flow, and yes, within the banks, right? Within the banks, and the banks are ever changing, just like a river. Like where we have people who are around us and helping us grow and learn and discern and give direction. And I'm of course I am not saying like a wild free for all, but what I am saying is the more we get in touch with our good desire, and I will also say our good anger, we become more and more courageous, free, and fully alive,
Mhm.
not less.
Mhm.
It's the blocking of this natural flow that causes, I will say, so many struggles in our lives, from relational struggles to physical struggles, to mental health struggles. Like when we can have freedom to be alive in our desire, this is a very significant aspect of being a human.
The word that's coming to my mind listening to all of your wisdom is abundance. When we understand that we are in a river full of abundance, like everything that we truly need is in this river, right? We began to we began to notice, and sometimes with other people, especially if we have patterns where our desires have caused us to betray ourselves and others, because you named that those banks, right, are for safety,
Mhm.
and they're for security. And but when we are able to see the abundance of all of the things that we truly need, that I believe that's when, well, you named it. We're fully alive, fully free, and what was the other one?
Courageous.
And courageous, right? It's almost, I saw this word the other day, and it was, so sometimes these one liners can frustrate me because I'm like, there's so much nuance in everything. But it said, you can be unstoppable. And I thought, well, that feels a little grandiose, but I really believe in that river of abundance, there is this sense of, I'm going to just quote Paul, I have learned to be content in lack and abundance, in hard times, in good times. There is this sense that the contentment comes from, you know, that you actually have everything you need.
Mm,
I don't know. What do you think about that?
yeah. Well, yes, I think it is true. It is a truth, and it is a truth that is hard for us to believe in our humanity.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
we believe it only through experience,
Yeah.
not from someone pointing the finger
Yeah.
and telling us the shoulds, the should nots. It's like the invitation is come and see, come and taste.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
an experience that we're being invited to,
Yeah.
not a set of rules.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much more I want to say. And I think I want us to talk next time about when we're talking about that we are people of desire. And
Mhm.
this word has been problematic. Like you and I both remember when we got into context where this word was used so freely, it was just felt a little bit awkward at first because the word itself carries judgment and shame. Yes. But I would like to have a conversation about when we say we are women of desire and we were created with a river of desire flowing through us. What do we mean when we're talking about desire? Because this is where I think a lot of people just maybe would want to just shut it down and say, nope, unsafe, not going there. But what is it that we're really talking about here when we're talking about um, that we are women of desire?
I would love to come back and have that conversation with you.
All right, great. Love this
Great to
one.
be
Yeah,
back. Love you, friend.
love you too.